So everyone that we talked about and every experience we talked about, either talked about our own youth or how we, our children and their involvement, or what we see when we see the World Series, there's one thing in common. It's a kid's game. We're here to do everything we can to make a safe, fun atmosphere for the children of our communities. We just happen to use baseball and softball as the vehicles. Could very easily be badminton or whatever, but those are the vehicles we use. But we're really a leadership program. The other thing that we talk about, and what that came to mind as each and every one of you said something about your experience, was, boy, where would we be without you? Where would we be without those managers and coaches that impacted you? Those league presidents that impacted you? And think about how you're impacting kids. You might not see it directly, but a couple of you said, no, I just love when the kids come up to me and say, oh, boy, hey, coach, how you doing? Here's my son. So think of the number of people that you're impacting with your position, okay? What we're going to do over the next 2 days, we're not going to cram, you're not going to walk out of here knowing everything there is to know about being a DA. But what you will do is create some memories. You're going to learn a couple things from us, but more importantly, we're going to learn from you. So you got to view this as a dialogue, not just people coming up and giving you presentations. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to ask you to interact. And that way the presentations and the information that flows, somebody may learn a little more from another person's experience. That's what we want to foster in this whole 2-day event. Okay? So let's get started. New DA and ADA presentation. This is mine. Here are some of the objectives. We want to provide an overview of the DA position. Okay? We also want to provide suggestions for operation. And when we say we're going to provide suggestions for operations, we're going to talk to you and suggest a couple things, and other people may suggest some things from their experiences that we can hopefully build, and you can walk away with some ideas of, when you go back to your district, how you want to operate, maybe make it a little more efficient than you're already operating, or maybe you've inherited a district that has really been inefficient. We don't know. But we do know when you go back, you're going to have the tools to get yourself ready to go. Provide those opportunities for discussion and interactions like I talked about. To talk amongst each other, you're going to talk a lot about what we're doing at lunch, over dinner, during breaks, so that discussion is really healthy and helpful. Okay? Let's talk about the role of the DA. First, the qualifications. You should have served in a local league, preferably as league president. And why do we say preferably? You don't necessarily have to be a league president, but a league president, and most of you are familiar with that, really kind of guides that league, right? Is the person that gives the league the direction. So in a district, you're doing the same thing. So you're giving that district some direction based on your experiences as the league president. That will help you. Should be a resident of the district area. Again, you don't have to be, but you should be. And the real reason is because we want you part of the community. There's no sense in living in another state and then coming and being a district administrator in one area when you don't live there and you're not part of that community. Doesn't mean you can't, but that's what we prefer. And the last point is have the time to devote to the activities. We're going to talk about delegation here in a minute, but we're assuming if you're up for election and you wanted to be elected and you were elected, that you have the time to devote to the activities of being a district administrator. You might walk out of here Sunday night and say, boy, I don't know if I have the time for the activities, but hopefully you will. Status and service. You have to be aware that you're a representative of the league's 2 headquarters. And when we say headquarters, we mean the regional facilities, the regional headquarters, and Little League headquarters. So you're kind of a liaison between your local leagues and the regional headquarters or Little League headquarters. And it's important because you're going to be our conduit. Danny will talk to you a little more about the league chartering kit. And we're actually going to give you your sample here. But we've developed a whole new chartering kit. And we're actually starting to send some of those to our district administrators to distribute to their leagues. So that's an example of you being the conduit to distribute that information and make sure it gets out appropriately. You've got to be knowledgeable, support the principles of the program. Most of you have been involved for some time, some haven't. But being knowledgeable doesn't necessarily mean you stop learning. So I always like to go to clinics. I always, like I said, I'm going to learn probably more from you over the course of the next 2 days. But always be open to learning and make sure you have that knowledge. Understand the policies, rules, and regulations. And the last one, we can do everything up top, but having good judgment, you just have to have it. We can't teach you to have good judgment. We're hoping you do, but we can't teach good judgment. We can only show you by example with some of the things that we do for the children, for the communities, but you have to have the good judgment. Okay? Let's talk about communications and contact. Frequent contact with leagues. Some of the more successful district administrators actually make it a point to go out and visit their leagues. Now, some of you have districts that are so big that it's pretty impossible to do that, but at least a phone call touching base might be helpful, or an email. But I would encourage you to go out and visit with your leagues. Some district administrators actually go to the board meetings and help them with any board issues that they may have during their board meetings. Okay? Monthly meetings are desirable, but a minimum of 3 to 4 annually. You know, we do have a very few district administrators, very few, that meet one time a year. And they meet in June. They distribute their brackets, and then they're gone. So that's hardly the service that we're looking for, and you yourself would think, as a league president, you know, I need a little more service than coming in and showing me the brackets one time a year. Okay? Some of the more successful districts meet 8, 10 times a year because they make those meetings a family. They make them fun. They cover some great ground. They cover great topics. They give a lot of direction. They make them meaningful. And league presidents actually look forward to going to the district meeting as opposed to, oh, I got a district meeting at 1 on Sunday. They actually look forward to it because the DAs make it fun, and there's always something there to learn collectively. Okay? Make sure your agendas are well planned and allow time for discussions. We've all been to meetings where someone's going to sit up and say, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. Thank you. Please sign the sheet, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Allow that opportunity for discussions. Ask league presidents what they think. Even though you probably have in your mind how you want to do things, allow some discussion. Because they're going to be your advisory board, your advisory panel that you can bounce things off of. And we'll get to that when we talk about the suggested operational flow chart. But allow time for discussion. Let them have some input. Okay? Responsibilities, form a district organization. We're going to talk a little more about delegation and getting people involved. But you can't do this alone. And we'll touch upon that in a few minutes. You're responsible to call meetings, conduct district tournaments, delegate responsibilities, which are prudent and essential. Your tenure of office is a 3-year term. You're elected by your league presidents. If a resignation or termination, the successor is appointed by Little League Baseball for the balance of the unexpired term. Elections by July 15th, terms to start October 1. Final point is all records to the successor. Okay, we're going to sit here and we're going to say, well, some of you are going to have very good records coming in, and some of you are going to have non-existent records. You may not have any 2Ds or 4H forms that were filed in the past, or any financial forms, or any type of guidance from the records from the previous DA. Give yourself this challenge. At some point, hopefully long from now, you may want to move on and do something else in terms of Little League. Start keeping good records for your successor right now. And leave that person with better records than you had coming in. And give yourself that challenge right now. Now's a great time to start. So give yourself that challenge, and that's probably, you'll make more friends doing that, trust me, than leaving them with a half-empty box of things that may not matter. Okay? Election procedures. Report forms and cards are sent out to the DA in June. Elections held at the time of tournament meeting before July 15th. Notice to each league at least 7 days in advance of the meeting date. Current chartered leagues are eligible to nominate and vote. In terms of validity, majority of the leagues must vote a quorum. Majority of the leagues voting necessary to elect the candidate. Current DA should appoint an election chairperson. Authorized league rep may nominate a candidate. Voting may be done by ballot or show of hands. The election report has to be signed by the chairperson and each league rep present. 2 copies of that report, one to the DA and one to Little League, and let's make sure that they're completed by July 15th. Obviously, you don't have to worry about that for a few years, but it's just something to show you. We can do them by mail as well when travel makes it impractical. Okay? If neither of the procedures result in a legal election, headquarters reserves the right to appoint a DA. So if you guys can't figure out who's going to be the next DA in your district, then we'll help you. But again, that's 3 years from now. We got much more to talk about than elections at the moment. Assistants, the assistant administrators or district administrators, or we like to call them ADAs, are appointed by you as the district administrator. Not by us, but by you. District funds, I'm going to leave all this to our financial people who are much more knowledgeable about that than I am. But I will talk about transparency a little bit, a little later. Okay, any questions on that? I know we kind of breezed through that a little bit, but... So, the authority of the DA. There's nothing on the slide. You're thinking, no, I don't have any authority whatsoever. Absolutely not, nothing. But actually you do. The interpretations are limited to current rules and regulations and policies. You can't go out and interpret rules differently than we as the organization interpret the rules. You can't go out and make your own regulations even though you think they're better than ours. We all have to be on the same page in terms of the regulations and the rules and the policies that we all interpret. Okay? Uphold the philosophy of the program. We're talking about kids, we're talking about communities, we're talking about getting as many people the opportunity to play baseball and softball as possible. Counsel leagues regularly. Every time I see this word counsel, I think of a former Central Region director. His name was Bob Bitterly. And Bob was very good at providing counsel to district administrators and leagues. And I can remember asking him, Bob, we're not getting very many charter committee cases from you. He said, well, Nick, I counsel them. I'm like, oh, counsel. I go, what do you mean counsel? I said, well, you got to give them guidance. Kind of keep them within the lines. I said, I got it, Bob. I got it. So, counsel leagues regularly. That's where you can go and, you visit their league. You visit their board meetings. And don't just show up like you're, the secret police or something. Just invite, ask them if it's okay to go and be part of their part of their meeting and help give them some information that they may or may not have. But be involved with your leagues. With unresponsive leagues, seek regional director's assistance. If you have a league that's just not answering a phone call, not answering an email, you're sending certified letters to them, and you're not getting any reply on an issue, then let's touch base with our regional director and see if they can assist. Okay? Use your regional director as a resource and the regional office as resources to help counsel your leagues. Okay? Annual report due to the regional director. This is something that I don't think a lot of district administrators really know. That they're supposed to send a report to their regional director about their activities with regards to the year. And mainly talk about things like, is there any league that's on suspension that you need to keep? Any leagues with pending action? An example of a league on suspension, let's say that there's a league that their constitution and bylaws is not updated. And before you get to elections, you need to make sure that constitution and bylaws is updated and in good standing and on file with the regional headquarters. If you tell our regional people to put their charter on hold, which simply means we're not going to send them a reaffiliation charter until you take care of that issue that's pending for them, then they can't affiliate until they solve that issue. Okay? Simply what that means. So that's one of the hammers that we use to make sure that leagues are in compliance. You'll have to request that from the regional director. So you can't call a regional director and say, look, I'm going to hold their charter because they're not inviting me to their district meeting or to their league meeting. We're not going to hold their charter for that. But if there are issues like there's a big boundary issue that needs to be resolved, those types of things, then we'll help you out and we'll suspend their charter until such time as they come into compliance and you say it's okay to release it. Okay? Charter waiver process, we're going to touch upon that a little later. It's an interesting process. Pat Wilson will talk about that a little later. Let's talk about the chain of command and service. At the bottom is our local leagues, right? So that's the grassroots. Those are everybody. So you could have vice presidents, commissioners, whoever reporting to the president, who will then report to you as a district administrator. From the district administrator, we then have the regional headquarters, and then Little League headquarters. So the reason that pyramid is so important is because the number of issues or the number of inquiries that we handle daily is best used if we follow this chain of command. Because let's say the Eastern region, they have 2,000 leagues. Currently we have 7,500, 7,200 leagues in the program. For us at Little League headquarters to handle all the inquiries about that is virtually impossible. We couldn't do it efficiently enough. So we rely on you as district administrators to help handle issues. And if there are issues that you don't know the answer to or you want to talk to us about, then give our regional directors or our assistant directors a call and they'll help you with any of those issues. And then if they have some issues, they can call us, or you can call us as well. But typically we want to try to keep this flow because this is the most efficient way we can handle those issues. So that's kind of the flow that we use. And it's been very successful. On occasion, we've had a local league call Little League headquarters, but here's how it happens. They call you and they ask for a ruling. You give them an answer based on their question. They're not happy. So they call the regional headquarters. They change their question because they're not happy with the answer they got from you. So they ask the question, and they're still not happy. So the local league will call Little League headquarters and change the question yet a third time. We like to call this shopping, okay, to try to get the answer that they are satisfied with. And usually, I can tell you from our staff's perspective, whenever we answer a question, because we're not going to just push them back down to the district administrator. In some cases we will, but we're going to answer the question that they've posed to us because we're a service organization and that's what we do. But when we answer the question, we're going to say, based on your question, and based on how you presented your question, the answer is this. Okay? But the question has always been, well, okay, every time you get a phone call, can you call me as a district administrator? Boy, it's tough to do. It's tough to do. So we'll continually try to keep that flow and that chain of command, that service going in that direction. But there are times when we have to answer questions, and we'll do our best to keep everybody in the loop. And with email, it's a little easier now. Before, with just phone calls, it was hard. Okay? Assistant DAs. We know they're necessary. You need them. Can't do this job alone. It's impossible. You can't do this job well alone. You can do it, but not very well. You need help, no doubt about it. Okay? Qualifications. Should have served in a local league, preferably a league president. Again, somebody that has some experience in terms of running a board, running an organization, albeit just a local league. Experience in all facets of league operation. Should be a resident of the district. Again, we want to make sure that they're part of the community, right? That's important. And again, have time to devote to the activities. The last bullet point is attend training sessions. Now, we're doing a lot of things with technology. We're web streaming. We're putting a lot of things online, whether they're PowerPoints, whether they're webinars. I know we've done some coaching webinars every Thursday. We go online and we talk about hitting and we talk about pitching, and through a product that we have that we'll talk a little more about probably tomorrow. But we're using technology to educate people. But there's still value in sitting across the table from someone and learning from a live setting too. So anytime you can go to one of the clinics or have your ADAs go to a clinic with you at a regional center or interact, that's very beneficial. Okay? Duties: if more than one ADA, one position must be designated to serve in the DA's absence. Kind of be that acting DA. So you've got a bunch of DAs or ADAs, and you really want to go on vacation. Actually, your wife or your spouse wants you to go on vacation, which is usually how it works. And you've been telling them, well, listen, it's election time. I really can't do that. Or it's registration time, and I can't leave my league president's kind of out on a limb. Have somebody as your right-hand person that can step in and help in your absence, so you can go on vacation for a week, or you can go see your son's games, whether they're in college, or go to some activities, or kind of live your normal life. We don't want you to be tied to the position, but we just want to make sure the position is handled by someone that can help us. Okay? Attend seminars, carry out the mission of service to the leagues, and promote Little League to new communities. Okay, some of the activities that we do. Tenure, it's up to you. You're the district administrator. Any ADA that you appoint, you hire, you release. It's entirely up to you, not us. Okay? Let's talk about the suggested organization and committees. Again, this is just a sample, so this can change an awful lot with the way you want to operate your district. But you talk about the advisory board, right? I talked about that a little earlier. Use your league presidents at your meetings. Bounce things off of them. They're kind of your advisory board, right? So they're finding out what's going on locally, what's going on in the grassroots at a local league that you may need to address throughout the district. An auxiliary representative, secretary, safety officer is very important, treasurer, other ADAs, your umpire consultant is very important. Information officer, sometimes that information officer is a kind of information officer / web person. We'll talk about websites a little later and how important they are to communicate. A membership person, to talk about trying to create more opportunities for kids in your district. Maybe some districts actually have a person that's really in charge of marketing for the district, right? To try to get more people involved and have creative marketing plans from a district perspective. Training, very important. Softball, safety, again, volunteer screening, a treasurer from a committee perspective, community participation, okay, public relations and leadership. These can all change to whatever your committees want. So in your situation, you might have a fundraising committee that you need to create kind of some revenue for your tournaments. So you might create a committee that says, look, all I want you guys to do is just try to raise money so we can have tournaments for the kids and give them pins, flags that we purchase through Little League and make it a great experience. I will tell you that your best thing to do, and they say, well, I can't do it alone, and I only have 3 guys that help me or 3 girls. If you go into your organization, you say, okay, all I want you to do, Steve, I just want you to concentrate on registration, just marketing. Don't worry about the tournament, don't worry about anything. You're a sales guy, you have a marketing background. Can you help me just market our district to everywhere? If you segment out those little duties, and you tell them, all I need you to do is this, very specific, more people will be willing to help you if you segment them out. If you say, I need you to do this, 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 and this, they're going to say, well, I have to go to church. I mean, I gotta work, right? But if you segment them out and be very specific, then more people are going to be willing to help you. So find the experts in your districts and say, you know what? Here's my umpire guy. I need one of those. Here he is. He's going to run my clinics for us. He's going to run our district umpire schools if we want to do that. He's going to help me staff our tournament games and our local league games. And then you move on to a softball person. He or she's going to help me do this, this, and this with regards to softball. Find a lot of people, give them a very specific duty, and make sure that duty doesn't last the whole summer. Give them a very specific duty, and then tell them at the end of the year, in September, you have a nice little dinner for everybody, and you thank them for their efforts, and you celebrate what you've actually put together for the district. It's a very neat way to do it. A lot of districts do that. Okay? I'm going to skim through this because Melissa's going to talk more about this in the next segment. But the approved district fund, again, I'll skim through it. Here's the one thing that I will tell you. Present a budget for the new fiscal year to the local leagues. Be transparent. Be transparent with your funds. Be transparent with your organization. Let's just take it to that step. But with the funds, be transparent. Let the leagues know that you have to buy pins, or you're traveling to Bristol for a clinic, or you're traveling to San Bernardino, and it's going to cost this much to bring you and an ADA. Let them know what your costs are. Copying. Some districts have a cell phone. Whatever. Be transparent. Show them your expenses. And let them know exactly what your costs are. There are some leagues and some districts that, and again, I'm not going to steal your thunder because I don't want to go too far into it, that assess a fee per player. And some leagues have issues with that. But if you're transparent about what your expenses are, then they won't have issues. An example is a local league. If you go through the registration line at our local league, we put a financial statement out. It's going to cost us this much for new helmets. We need a fence on the minor league field, and we have to rebuild all the mounds. This is what it's going to cost us. Our registration fee is this. Parents have no problem if they see where the money's going. If everybody's like this with the money, then there's questions, honestly. So just be transparent. Again, I don't want to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you handle that. I'm sorry. I did. I stole it. Sorry. Sorry, you can figure something else out to say for your hour that you're doing it. Insurance coverage available, travel, accident for district administrators and their staff. General liability is available. Directors and officers liability and crime insurance is available for district administrators. Let's talk about the Congress real quick, and then we'll take a quick 5-minute break and get Melissa kind of wired up and ready to go with her session. The Congress. The first Congress was held in Chicago in 1956. The purpose really was to give field personnel an opportunity to voice a voice kind of in the affairs of Little League Baseball at that time, and now Little League Baseball and softball. Okay, so you have an opportunity to talk about rules, regulations, and discuss them. The procedure for the agenda: leagues and DAs are invited to send recommendations to the Rules Committee. The committee tabulates those subjects, prepares an agenda of subjects with the greatest interest. The delegates, DAs, or approved alternates vote on a subject following a roundtable discussion, and the final vote tabulated via computer is referred to the International Board of Directors for implementation. So we'll collect all kinds of rule amendments prior to a Congress year. And we meet every 4 years now. We used to meet every 3, but now we're meeting every 4. And we have a little roundtable discussion, a little mini Congress, so to speak, in each region on year 2. Right, so we separate that out. But the purpose is we'll request amendments, rule amendments. We can do them via computer, via surveys on computers. People have typed them up, emailed them to us. We've gotten them on napkins, everything. We'll tabulate all of those requests. So let's say that somebody wants to play softball with a grapefruit. I think it's a great idea, right? So everyone throughout the country suddenly wants to play softball with a grapefruit. They submit it in. We put it on the agenda, and whenever we get to, I think it's Minneapolis, which is our next one, you all will sit around at round tables with other DAs and ADAs from different areas of the country and the world and discuss, do we want to play softball with a grapefruit? And you'll vote at that table and make a suggestion. You'll discuss that. If there's an amendment to that rule, well, let's not make it a grapefruit, let's make it an orange. Okay, well, let's make it an orange. So that rule is then changed to an orange. It's presented to it's actually voted on by all of the delegates via computer. We'll have computers set up in a room. You as a DA can go in and vote on that particular rule. That's then sent to the International Board of Directors, and they will vote ultimately on whether we play softball with an orange. That's pretty much the nuts and bolts of how that works. So when we talk about Congresses and what's important about them, that's one of the things that's very important, that you actually have a voice in the way the program is operated in some of the rule changes and policy changes. And we get that voice from your local leagues. So what DAs do is they go to their local leagues, they have their meetings, and they say, okay, I'm going to Congress. What do you want to talk about? What do you want me to talk about? What are some of the rule changes that you have? You submit them. When you get to Congress, we talk about them, and then we end up with whatever our international board votes on based on your recommendation. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. But there are other reasons for Congress, too. We nominate new international board members from a field representative. The expense of the delegates are handled through an escrow fund created by part of the charter fees. So we help fund your way to the Congress. This says we convene every 3 years. It should be every 4 years, actually, since we've changed that last year. But second to the last bullet point is educational opportunities. This is probably just as important as changing rules, because there are a lot of things that happen over the course of 4 years that we want to share with you. And we usually use Congresses to roll out new ideas and new initiatives. So keep that in mind when we start talking about Minneapolis in the next Congress. Okay? Any questions on what we've covered? I know we went through it somewhat quickly, but we have a full day ahead of us, but I think that there's some things that you can kind of take from the first morning session. One, you can't do it alone. Very important. Got to find help. 2, be transparent, not just with finances, but with your operation. If there's an answer or a question that you don't know, tell them you don't know and come find an answer through our regional headquarters or our headquarters here at Williamsport. And if we don't know, we'll find an answer for you. Okay? And you have more authority amongst the leagues than you think. They elected you. They put their trust trust in you to give them guidance. So, they're trusting you to get the knowledge that you need to give them guidance and keep them kind of within the lines, right? As they go through and provide service to their local constituents, to their kids. So, utilize that as a way to get them involved too. Don't try to do it yourself. Use your league presidents. A lot of DAs use their league presidents as ADAs too. Just because they're a league president doesn't necessarily mean they can't be an ADA for you. They certainly can. And probably the better people to, because they have that interaction amongst the grassroots. Okay? Any questions? Yes, or Linda, I'm sorry.
Can an umpire be an ADA?
Question is, can an umpire be an ADA? Sure. Absolutely. Guess you have to have your husband be an ADA, don't you?
No, he's the umpire.
Oh, okay. All right. That's what you were thinking, really. All right. I was just wondering. No, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
With the background checks, I didn't see anything about that for your ADAs. Most of them are league officers, but some are not. Do we run our own deal? Or?
You do, and you're given a number of background checks as well. I didn't touch upon it because you're going to learn more about that through Jim Ferguson and the Child Protection Program. But yeah, you're allotted a number of background checks as well. Okay, any other questions? Be shy now. Yes?
Do ADAs have to be affiliated with
Do
the league?
ADAs have to be affiliated with a league? No. No, they do not. So let's take the marketing guy, for example. You know a guy that's really good at marketing, and you know what? He doesn't have any kids, and he's not involved in baseball, softball, soccer, or anything. But he's a good friend of yours, and he's a resource that you can use. Absolutely, use him. He absolutely can. Because I guarantee you, once he does it, he's going to be like the rest of us. He'll get bit by the bug, and then he'll keep coming back year after year and find some rewarding things that it provides him. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, in the back.
I just want to make sure, so you can be a board member on a local league and on a district board at the same time?
You could be a board member on a local league and be an ADA.
Just an ADA, nothing else?
Well, it's typically districts, they can have boards, I suppose, advisory boards. But in terms of the board voting, you could do both, I suppose. It's all in semantics. You can be an ADA, you can be on an advisory board of a local league and on the board of the district, an advisory board. Certainly. We're not going to restrict volunteerism in that fashion because we need to be out there for you and help you.
Be a treasurer in the local league and a treasurer for the district.
Be careful. Be careful. There's nothing that says you can't, but be careful. Because what it does is it puts that person in a very tough predicament. All of a sudden, the local league has a $30,000 lighting fund that just increased to $40,000. And now the district funds are, they're depleted. They're not as much as they were last year. Well, why is that? Just that perception of impropriety can be difficult to put a person in. I'm not saying that person did anything, but when you go out and find your help, try to protect them in terms of what the perceptions would be for them. So I think I'll let Melissa speak more to that than I would. Okay? Anything else? Yes, sir.
We have 12 leagues in our district, and some 3 years ago, we were at 11, and the 12th district came in, and the boundaries were drawn, and they took a lot of the kids from this one district. So now this one district 3 years later is hurting for kids. Is it possible to go back and get both districts together and say, let's try to come up with different boundaries and change those boundaries by working with both league presidents, or is that a no-no?
No, I think it's very possible. There's always an opportunity to sit down and explain what some of the parameters are of a discussion and say, look, here's what's happened over the years. Maybe a development went in this one area, and the population boomed, and there's more kids in this particular area that used to be in another area. It's a tough discussion to have, I'll be honest with you, but typically district administrators, and that's what I would encourage all of you, have those open lines of communication, not just with your local leagues, but with your fellow district administrators, because they're going to be able to help you in certain times of the year and with certain other things too. And we're going to talk about combined teams forms and extension divisions, teenage divisions and softball, and how you can help group everything together and help each other. But you need to have that communication with other district administrators as well. But yeah, absolutely, I would encourage that communication. I don't know how far it will get because some of the situations and the intricacies of those issues can be very tender and deep, right? So you have to be careful with it. But absolutely, have that open that line of communication. Talk with them. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Yes.
When a local league has, we'll call it family infighting, and all of a sudden as a DA, I'm getting phone calls from every parent in the league, who are we really responsible to communicate with? Because somehow they all get my phone number and they're all calling me. It just.
Okay. Did everyone hear that? I think the question was when a local league has some infighting and all of a sudden the DA gets bombarded with phone calls. Who do you refer those to? Is that your question? Who do you go back to with the local league? And how do you answer those questions from parents? The first answer is the guy that gave me your number was the league president. Most likely.
Or the regional office.
Could be the regional office too. Because you're a service person, right?
Right.
So, the answer to those local league infightings, well, my kid didn't make the all-star team. Or, they're not giving our minor league coach pitch new uniforms. They're using last year's uniforms. Those types of questions, those types of issues. They're all local in nature. And usually, not always, and we talked about this at dinner with a few people last night, usually they just want to hear that from somebody other than the league president. And if you can explain it to them in a calm and rational manner and say, look, there isn't any way me as a district administrator in charge of 12 leagues can legislate what you spend on coaches or coach pitch uniforms. That's a local league issue that I would suggest you talk to, not just your league president, but other board members of your league, to let them know what your interest is or what your complaint is or what your concern is. If you can kind of talk them off the ledge a little bit, we try to do that at every level of our organization. It's hard because there are some people that are so impassionate about the program and about their kids, obviously. But typically that's kind of the flow and how that happens. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but pretty much. Okay. All right, let's take 5 minutes real quick so we can get Melissa wired up, and then we'll continue on with accounting and finance. So if you guys want to stand, there's coffee, there's juice, soda, and water. Thank you.
Out of the room.